Bona Lake Country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before the Liberals even presented their NDP budget, they were proudly bragging about how inflated tax revenues from tax increases and inflation would let them spend even more than before. They proudly announced the billions added to the national debt. Yet for all that spending, they can't explain to my constituents why food and house prices will only continue to rise. They point the fingers away from themselves. Is the government ever going to connect the dots and see that their continued high spending means higher costs of basic necessities for hardworking Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the leader of the Conservative Party herself has already admitted that the extraordinary investments that were made over the course of the pandemic were necessary to protect Canadian families and Canadian workers. Our plan has worked. In fact, we have maintained the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7 while growing the economy and recovering 115% of jobs lost due to the COVID-19. Canada was able to do this because of our prudent fiscal management. It is now time to unwind the pandemic deficits and continue to grow our economy while reducing our debt to GDP ratio. This is what good fiscal managers do, and it's going to allow us to make Canada and life.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Aggressive rate hikes are coming, and that's because this government continues to spend recklessly. Here's what that means for an average Canadian. If you're lucky enough to buy a house for the $800,000 that it costs, with a 2% mortgage, you're paying about $3,400 a month for those mortgage payments. The potential of a 3% rate hike means $3,400 turns into $5,200. Why is this government drowning Canadian homeowners in the debt of tomorrow to pay for the pet projects of today?
Great question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we just recently had an election where the Conservatives actually committed to spend more than what we proposed. They pretend to be good fiscal managers, but this is impossible if you're not committed to evidence-based decision-making. Our government will lower our debt to GDP ratio every single year for the next 5 years. Unlike the Conservatives, we will do this while fighting climate change, investing in housing affordability, and building a Canadian economy of the future alongside our Indigenous partners while fighting climate change.